Hafa day to our viewers in Guam and the Northern Mariana Islands. My name is Tomas Manglona with KUAM on Saipan, reporting for KUAM. And today we're grateful to be joined by one of our branches of government here in the CNMI, the Judiciary. And I wanted to go ahead and pass it over for introductions to the Clerk of the Supreme Court, Gretchen Smith. Gretchen, good morning. Good morning, Joel.
Thank you, Tomas, and we're happy to be here. As you said, my name is Gretchen Smith. I am the Clerk of the Supreme Court. To my right, we have Associate Judge Teresa K. Kim-Tenorio from the Superior Court, and we also have Director of Courts for the Judiciary, Sonia A. Camacho.
All right, thank you again for joining us, Judge and Director. Good morning to you.
Good morning and Hafa day, CNMI and Guam.
All right, we know it's a busy time, so we went ahead and jump right in. I wanted to ask about how the judiciary's court operations and services are impacted by the coronavirus. I know we're heading into, I think, what is the 5th month of a public health emergency here in the Northern Marianas. So how have operations been impacted?
Right, so I can go ahead and get started with that question, Tomas. Recently, the Supreme Court issued a number of orders at the height of the coronavirus pandemic. We issued order number 1 on March 17, 2020, and effectively closed the vast majority of the judiciary's operations. However, we still resumed services for emergency hearings such as arraignments. It's important to note, however, that the court staff and bench members continued to operate effectively and efficiently throughout this whole time, ever since the first COVID order was issued. Shortly after the first COVID order was issued, the Supreme Court issued a second order in light of the number of confirmed coronavirus cases. We continue to maintain essential operations. The staff continue to work either at judiciary facilities or remotely, and particular hearings were continued to be held, such as temporary restraining order hearings, as well as arraignments and other such matters. But recently, the court issued a third COVID-19 order where we resumed particular operations of the judiciary. We opened the cashier's office, as I'm sure you are aware. We have customers coming in. The Superior Court is able to maintain certain hearings, the vast majority of which are being held. And the Supreme Court recently successfully held its second quarter appellate session via Microsoft Teams. In fact, it wasn't just CNMI attorneys that were representing parties at the Supreme Court oral argument appellate sessions, but also attorneys from Guam. So in general, we've had a very successful operations. And yeah, Sonia, did you have anything further to add on that?
I just wanted to add that we are in the 11th week of the initial closure in March. It was a challenge for some of our self-represented litigants who are used to in-person appearances, but through our continuity of operations plan, we were able to activate, as our clerk of court stated, emergency services for those that needed to come before the courts. The challenge is the change in the mode of communication, and so we've had to do a lot of technology-driven hearings. We hope to we anticipate to do some more of that in the coming weeks. It's also been a challenge to limit the number of persons in court sessions, but due to the health and safety containment measures, we have tried to, as best as we can, to maintain very good standards, and we continue to do the work of the court, notwithstanding the pandemic and its threat.
And now I wanted to be talking about operations for the public, for the community, and talk about some operations within the court itself. What's the status of some major projects, including the construction of the courthouse? And I know I've also covered in the past, Sonia, speaking with you about the HVAC system. What are some challenges that present itself because of COVID-19 and maybe because of also some executive or legislative roadblocks that might be in place?
Well, when the COVID-19 containment measures took effect in March, Thomas, it put on hold a lot of mostly everything. We have ongoing projects that are from the March 2018 downturn of our HVAC and the mold remediation projects associated with it. We also have repair work from the Super Typhoon Mewtwo damage to our building. And so those came to sort of a slow speed and at some point a complete halt. In March, the executive branch asked us to suspend action on the HVAC contracting process, at least until the CNMI gets its grip on the containment measures for COVID-19. And just as recent as last week, we met with the Secretary of Finance, and we're looking forward to resuming those talks and those projects, hopefully by the first week of July. As for the Super Typhoon Mewtwo damage, good news is that the skylight repair was completed April 30, and we're looking forward to submitting over $500,000 for that project in FEMA reimbursements. And so while things slow down, we look forward to them picking up again in the next couple of weeks.
And I know you're mentioning part of the court's role in advocating for those projects their completion. What type of support or word are you getting from the executive or legislative branch that you're able to share to the extent that they're able to support the efforts that you mentioned?
Well, in June of 2018, the legislature passed a statute that provided for $7 million for the HVAC and the mold remediation projects. We started the procurement process, and the scheduling continued with several experts on the HVAC and mechanical engineering aspects of those projects. Come March of this year, again, the executive branch approached us and said, because of the uncertainty of funding and the effects of the COVID-19 mitigation issues, we're going to put a hold on this project, at least until we know where we're at on funding levels. We decided to alert them that we have some spaces, alternate spaces, that are also funded through that public law. And so we went back on discussions to allow the continuity of those alternate sites, notwithstanding the suspension of the construction itself. And so that has happened. And just last week, we resumed talks with the Secretary of Finance to, again, resume these projects as early as July.
All right, thanks for that. I wanted to now move to talk about the recent furloughs and the budget cuts. We know that the fiscal summit was recently held with all three branches of government there and representatives from the private sector. How have the courts specifically been impacted by the recent furloughs? How many staff or had to be let go, and what do those numbers look like for the judiciary right now?
Well, initially, we were informed in beginning of the year that all the branches of government would have to take a proportionate cut, and so the initial cut was at 28%. As COVID-19 containment measures took effect, and I think the revenue projections started to dip. As we all know, the economy shut down, and in early April, our allotments took a 48% cut. And so it's a huge cut to our operations. What that did for us is initially we imposed austerity days for our staff. And so the court was closed every Friday. And then because of the huge cut that came in April, we went to workforce reductions. So the workforce reductions meant non-renewal of contracts for some staff, furlough, 12-month furlough for some, and 30-day layoff notices for others.
And how many staff are you talking about for the 12-month furlough, and out of how many total?
Well, at this time, we're looking at not filling 24 positions or maintaining those positions going forward. And so the judiciary started this fiscal year with 98 positions. We're looking at sustaining ourselves with 74. And so it's a huge cut. It impacts our services. As a matter of fact, our very busy traffic area is the cashier station at the Office of the Clerks of Court. And because we lost one of our cashier, we are operating half day, at least for the next foreseeable weeks.
All right, thank you so much. I wanted to go ahead and shift to asking Judge Teresa Kim-Tenorio a few questions as well. Judge, you recently gave an interview with local media stating that social distancing may increase domestic violence. This is something we've talked with the local coalition here with the director, Tenorio, with about. What are the efforts or the work that the court's doing now to reach out to survivors and potential victims amid the pandemic and stay-at-home orders?
Okay, all right, so thank you, Tomas. So what the courts are doing, what we're doing is we've issued several public notices via media, social media, Facebook and Instagram and so forth, basically letting the community know how they can file, for example, TROs while the court is closed. So they have a direct line to the family court manager that they can call and ask how to file TROs. They can do it electronically. They can send it in via mail. And initially, it was a process. It was a process because it was something we're very unfamiliar with, including how we received TRO filings from CARDOT and from the Attorney General's office. It's gotten a lot smoother, so I continue to sign temporary restraining orders, and all of our, both the Attorney General's office and CARDOT know how to submit it to the court, and with the posting of the signs at Marina's Business Plaza and here at the Guma Justicia, and then the public notices in Facebook and Instagram. I think pro se clients are understanding better how to file them, and so I get regular filings now.
All right, and I also wanted to talk about the drug court program. I know this is something that has had success in the community. How have those that program been impacted by COVID-19 and its
impacted in several different ways. Drug court was not immune to the layoffs, and so we are working with a skeleton crew now, which means that we are not able to accept any new participants, but we are continuing to service the ones that we do have. Initially, the biggest impact was that our ancillary services, so CGC, the Hope Recovery Center, other partners, they had, also obviously had to adhere to the new directives and so forth from the Office of the Governor. So the residential service residential group home, they shut down, and then CGC had to kind of figure out how to operate remotely, as well as the Hope Recovery Center, and we had to as well. And so treatment temporarily was suspended, but treatment is back up and running now, mainly through Zoom and other video formats, as well as over the phone. And for drug testing, we kind of had to, we had to also be concerned about the safety of our officers who conduct the drug testing. And so we had to make sure that they had the proper PPE and so forth. And as of 2 weeks ago, we're back to 100% drug testing. So that's working well. But I won't lie, we did have our challenges initially because, with COVID-19, in addition to the fact that all these participants are battling a severe illness, to all of a sudden say all these new rules have been imposed on you, and guess what? We're not going to be drug testing for a while, and you're not going to get treatment services. It's a big deal, and it's more than even for folks who are not battling that addiction. It's a lot to deal with, and so it was added stress for them. But I think just like the rest of us, they've adjusted as well, and the program is now with adjustments running at 100%. So I hope that we can get everybody back on track.
All right, thank you so much, Judge. And I just wanted to go ahead and wrap up our conversation here by asking that amid all those challenges that you just laid out, it is really a rough time, and hearing that about the drug program, can be discouraging maybe to some. And we know that everyone's trying to operate, as you said, within their means. I wanted to ask, though, of the entire panel that we have here today, what's your message to the community on ensuring that the judicial process, the third branch of government, remains intact during these trying times?
All right, so I'll start with the court aspect. I just want to let the community know that we never closed. I'm very cognizant and sensitive to the various issues that affect families. So for example, the intended consequence of the social distancing and home quarantining is that we wanted to flatten the curve and to arrest COVID-19, so to speak. But there were many intended and unintended, and that was the intended consequence. There were unintended consequences that were good and bad. The good consequence was that Mother Earth is healing, right? Pollution has gone down and so forth. Families are having more time together, maybe more home cooked meals. It was an opportunity for families to start a home project together, maybe do some spring cleaning and so forth. The unintended, the bad unintended consequence was that people were losing jobs. The economy came to a screeching halt. We have kids who all of a sudden had to be homeschooled, more or less. We have domestic violence victims who are now in isolation with their batterers. We have children who are victims of child abuse who are now in isolation with their abusers. And so being the family court and drug court judge, I was very sensitive to that. And so we never stopped hearing those hearings that were very important, that are very sensitive and important to our community. So I continue to hear TRO hearings, continue to accept TRO filings, continue to hear worship hearings for child abuse and neglect. And, and because of the financial situation, we have non-custodial parents and custodial parents who have lost their jobs or reduced work hours, who are now coming to the court saying, please adjust child support. I can't pay this amount anymore, or please adjust child support. I need more money, depending on which side of the fence you're at. And so the court never closed. And from the aspect of the judges, we continue to work and we continue to address those needs.
Sonia.
I just wanted to highlight that in a pandemic, there's a lot of strain that's left with families, as the judge said. But the facilities may be closed, court facilities may be closed, but judicial services continue. We are open to provide and be a fruitful member to the criminal justice system. Crime doesn't stop, and when the economy is challenged, people come to court to address some of their concerns, and so we are here for that. Our justices and judges continue to decide cases, determine areas of law that impact safety and health, and the economic structure of the CNMI. So we will remain open. I just want to comment, Thomas. I want to thank our staff who have provided service above and beyond their call. They have been strained since our HVAC issues 2 years ago, where we had to have them operate at alternate sites. And then Super Typhoon Yutu came and for some of them rid their homes. They continue to remain committed as public servants, notwithstanding that emergency situation for us as a court family. And then with the pandemic, we asked them to come in, of course, providing services with the pandemic guidelines and directives issued not only by the executive branch, but through CDC and our National Center for State Court Partners. So I really want to thank the judiciary bench members and the staff for continuing on their commitment and their oath of office.
Right, so I just want to echo the sentiments by Judge Kim-Tenorio as well as Sonia. The court continues to assess the circumstances surrounding coronavirus and its impact. As Sonia said, we continue to work hard, the bench members as well as the staff. And despite the unprecedented nature of the pandemic and the uncertainty that comes along with it, the court is doing its best to respond to the needs of the public while maintaining public health and safety. So yeah, thank you.
All right, again, we want to thank Director of Courts Sonia Camacho, Associate Judge Teresa Kim-Tenorio, and the Clerk for joining us. And thank you to our viewers on Guam, the CNMI, and across the globe for tuning in. Again, we're joined by members of the third branch of government, the judiciary, and we're here on KUAM News reporting from Saipan. My name is Tomas Manglona. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you.
Thank you.